Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Encounter program. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Bishop Marcus Matthews. Bishop Matthews, it is incredibly nice to have you here with us today. I've been looking forward to interviewing for you for a while now.
Thank you.
And getting to know you. I know that the United Methodist Church has been a very much a part of the Council of Churches and the ecumenical movement in this area. So I thank you for coming on the show with me today. Now I know that there's been a lot of changes in the Methodist Church here recently, and can you describe a little bit about what happened and how God has been moving in shaping a new conference and that kind of thing?
Yes, first let me say thanks for the invitation. It's good to be here, and look forward to continuing the relationship with the Council of Churches, and so this is good for me. Let me just say that the process that was used for what we now call the Upper New York Annual Conference really started about 7 years ago under the leadership of several bishops and lay leaders in this area. And so it's been a period of discernment where men and women have come together to discover what God was saying to the people called United Methodists in upstate New York. 4 annual conferences decided that it was better to come together to be a single voice in upstate New York. And that decision was made by the group, and that took effect June 2010. Mm-hmm. And so we're close to 2 years old. We have been trying to, in this area, to live God's gospel and to be all that we can with our neighbors. And so it's been a good journey so far, but it's been a journey that has been paved by men and women over a 7-year period who really feel that this is what God was calling our church to do at this particular time in history.
Mm-hmm. Now you were originally in Western New York, is that correct? Or were you
yes.
in that conference? And that was in kind of the Buffalo, Rochester. How far east did that come?
Actually, it was called the New York West area.
West area? Which
consisted of 2 of the 4 annual conferences.
Okay.
Western New York, which you're correct, included Buffalo and Rochester. And then there was the North Central, which included Syracuse.
Syracuse.
And so those geographic areas were basically what I was assigned to at first.
All right, and now it's over a very large geographical area.
It's roughly 48,000 square miles.
Right, right.
And so geographically we do cover a lot of area now.
Well, you must be on the road a lot.
I laugh. That is true in part, but you know, the blessing is I have a cabinet made up of district superintendents. We have 12. Very good district superintendents, and they are the ones who do more of the work in terms of they are the link to local churches. And so I don't have to travel that much. I'm located in Syracuse.
Right.
And Syracuse happens to be the center for who we are now. And so it does not take me that long to get to too many areas. I guess the furthest point would be maybe about 3.5 hours.
Now, I know that some of our listeners would be very eager to know how a person becomes a bishop, and I know that you've I've been able to read your biography. It's fascinating to see how God has moved in your life and see where you've come from. Would you like to say a little bit about how a person, you know, what kind of journey led you to this place in your life, and how you maybe even how a United Methodist bishop becomes United Methodist bishop? Okay,
I'll try to do both. And let me just say that for me, as I reflect back on my life, I believe that there were a number of benchmarks. There were a number of places in which God was preparing me for what I'm doing now. And so, as you know, when I finished college, I actually went to New York City. I graduated from college during the time of the Vietnam War was kind of coming to closure, but there was still the draft. I started off in New York City, actually being a caseworker for the welfare department. Right. That only lasted for 3 months because at that time the draft was in effect. But I knew that I always wanted to work with people. Even when I was in high school, I always wanted to do something to help someone. I didn't know how I would do that, but I always wanted to be involved with people. Fast forward, not only did I do the social work in New York for a brief period, but I returned to South Carolina and became a community worker. Right. And I did that in my local church. That was an eye-opener for me. I was still lay. It gave me a chance to see that ministry was more than a pastor preaching on Sunday morning, but it involved things such as what you're doing. My church was a very active church, so I saw where we had pastors in and out, guest preachers who did a variety of things. And so I began to see that the church was much larger than just my local congregation. Right. I think that God continued to prepare me not only in that local church, but when I became ordained in the various churches I served. I served as a district superintendent in our denomination for some 10 years, 2 different periods. And I also served as a council director. All of those things, as I look back, were helping to prepare me for being a bishop in the church. It's interesting you are asking this question at this very moment, because in July we'll be electing 3 bishops in the Northeast jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And in the annual conference, which I'm privileged now to serve, they are going through a process of interviewing persons who have made themselves available for the office of bishop. And they will be endorsing a person at our annual conference and sending that name onto our jurisdictional conference. It will be in July where we'll be privileged to elect 3 bishops for the Northeast. And I will be presiding at that time, helping to make that happen. One last thing I would like to say is that I celebrate in my life, and I'll never forget. I was actually elected a bishop in Syracuse, New York, in 2000. I was elected a bishop there, and I'm sorry, 2004. The years are moving on so fast. And I was consecrated in Hendricks Chapel, which you know, Syracuse University was actually started as a United Methodist institution, and Hendricks Chapel was actually built during the Depression. Wow. And United Methodists, instead of giving up, because the vision was to have a chapel there on Syracuse University, continued with the building process. And so Syracuse, Hendricks Chapel have very special place in my heart, because I was actually consecrated a bishop in that chapel in 2004. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. And so theologically, you know, speaking, mm-hmm. the idea of a bishop, mm-hmm. and how might that differ from the United Methodist bishops from other bishops that might be in like a Lutheran context or inside of a Catholic context? What would the difference there be? There are several differences. A part of our polity as United Methodists is that one, we are an itinerant church, which basically means that all of our elders move from place to place and they are appointed by bishops. In our polity, even bishops we are assigned by a group called the Episcopal Committee of the Jurisdiction. And so that is unique. We are bishops, we are assigned every 4 years. We can stay in the areas, though, up to 12 years, but in 4-year increments. And so that is different about our denomination. Another, what I call major difference, is that we are a connectional church.
Right.
Every place you travel throughout this area and you see a cross and a flame on either a church or take, for an example, right here in this area, one of our major nursing homes, where you see a cross and flame, it represents a United Methodist building, institution, what I like to say, a mission station. And so every United Methodist church is connected to each other. In this annual conference, we have 900 United Methodist churches, with some 180,000 United Methodist, I like to say, card-carrying members who participate, worship, and are parts of these congregations. And so the connectionalism, we try to do our work in what we call holy conferencing, where we bring our people together annually in what we call an annual conference setting, and that is where we make decisions that impact the lives of our local churches. When local churches send their members to the annual conference, they become members of that annual conference, and then they help to determine what our policies and directions would be for the incoming year.
All right.
That's a long way around.
Well, it's a good way to describe it, because I mean we function, you know, and our viewers are all from various denominations, and so it's good to know what particularizes one denomination over another or against another, or how they view things differently, because it creates, in my understanding of it, at least, you know, a mosaic or a tapestry, or shows how big God's kingdom is and how we all can function within that a little differently and have different ideas, but yet still embrace the faith of God in Christ, which is an important thing, I think, even for United Methodists.
Oh yes, the Bible is certainly central to all of what we do, but we also understand in our denomination that there are different interpretations, but the Bible is central to everything that we do. And we always like to refer back to the founder of our denomination, John Wesley, because he always said that United Methodists are people who practice being holy in our lives. We practice personal and social holiness.
Right.
And you see that evident in a lot of our churches doing